Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's August 1st. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it's another weak channel today. We had a little bit of a downtrend early, but in the end, we're just really pivoting off this midline here. This was kind of the highs, and this was the lows, and you got pretty much an equal overshoot off the lows and equal overshoot off the highs. Can't really see that one, but if you drag it over here, you can see about that. But that's where I saw it today. We did have this channel. This was a pretty good channel working down, so you did get a nice setup off that, and then another second entry down to a new low off of that same channel. So if you saw those two, you really had two pretty nice trades, both of them being second entries. And then this was that where you try to catch that major low of the day, and it did, even though it didn't go very far. It still was the low of the day, and I love those failed breaks when you can get the right setup on them. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go through the trades. It won't take long, and we'll wrap today up. I'm ready for some volatility to come back, hopefully soon, but it is what it is. We'll trade what we got. So this is definitely looking rangy. We had a little failed break out the upper side, and then notice the failed break out the low side. This was only the first test of that low, so I didn't feel comfortable going long there. Even though that works, you still got your trend channel, your trend line coming down. There's no break of it yet or anything. So, but when it comes back here and tests it again, that pretty much is a second attempt, even though that's still just a couple of bars later. It is another attempt to come down and test that. So you could treat that like a double test, and you get a lower high here. So that's like a second entry long or coming off the high, and it's like a higher low coming off the low. So I like going long right there. Just looking for prices to come back up to test these highs, and then maybe even this high. Quick scalp, and then it turns down, it bounces, tries to go higher, and you get a lower high here off those highs, and that really is the same. You can see that was the original high over there. So that's a lower high. You want to draw your trend line off those first two swings, see in case prices come back to it. I'm not crazy about this trade. If it would have broke higher and then went down, I would have liked it better. But it's still a lower high and a fairly bearish bar, and prices are probably coming back to test this low again. And it actually shoots on through, and it pretty much confirms this channel. You can see that line if you drag it down here. Somehow my line's off there. Not sure how that happened, but there it is. Maybe when I drug it down, I grabbed it the wrong spot. But there it is anyway. So you're just looking for prices to come back down and test these lows and maybe go to the other side of the channel. And I originally had this here. I kind of moved it up a little, but it didn't matter. Every time we came down, we got further away. So this may be right here. But this was a nice, and you're looking for a measured move similar to this one. And if we measure that leg, we're looking for prices to come right here. And you see we went a little further before we bounced, and then we had another leg down. This is just two sides, even though this really is a failed second entry long, because that's a new swing high, and you're coming down first entry, pull back second entry. So that's a failed second entry long. It's like a double test of this lower line here. Fairly bearish bar, but you're going long right into it's. We're just going sideways there, so I think it's too risky. I marked it because it is a failed second entry long. It's not a textbook setup. It's not a very good setup at all. You're going sideways here. A lot of bars stacking up. I think you're just better off to skip that one. And of course, it does turn out to be a failed break lower. But you don't get a very good signal bar down here. You get a little lower high here, but you're right back into those highs, and you're not that far from the trend line. And guess what? It runs back up, it bounces off the trend line, it tries to make a retest, but catches that trend line again. So you got a second entry short here, with everything working off that trend line, confirming it. Fairly bearish bar. I like taking that short. And you hope that maybe you push down for another leg, but it pushes down, it bounces, and notice how we're getting further and further away from that line. That's telling you that we're losing momentum here. And you're coming up, got a trend line coming up, you get a break of it, move to a new high, and it just barely breaks higher than this little high here, and you get another second entry short. So I like that one. It's basically, you can see those. This is one test and then another test of this level here, and you probably want to move your line up there at that point. But that's a second entry short, and you're looking for it to run down and make a new low. And notice this trend line coming down. You get a close outside, move to a new low, and it turns right up. Plus, you get a double test of this, and you get that little failed break lower. Generally, you want to wait on a higher low, but in this case, everything is lined up right. You got the break of this little trend channel, a move to a new low, and it bounces. You've had the break of the main channel, a move to a new low, and you can also treat that like a little failed break lower. So, and notice by that time how we've been below the EMA, above it, below it, above it, below it, above it. That's telling you it's a range day. And so I like that one. You don't really get a higher low till up here, and you don't want to go long right into all that. You see what happens, it fails. You get a first entry, pullback, second entry, and it fails. Gives you a fairly bearish bar. It is right back into that midline. And you got to be careful, but at this point, that's kind of been the highs all along here, and you may have moved this one up by that time. And you can see that it's a little bit of a failed break higher and a fairly bearish bar. So you might take that one. It ends up going sideways, and it tries to go higher again and makes a lower high, and you get a little small bar here. But by that time, you got so many bars stacked up. This is like a little trading range. There is a, notice this high here, pull back your first entry and you pull back second entry. So it's like two attempts to go higher that fail. I marked it green, but I just tell you I'd skip that trade. I'm not crazy about it, but I know people will ask about it. So there are some reasons to consider it if you want to, be aggressive, but I just don't like it. I marked it. I can see why you'd like this one. I actually had somebody email me about this one, and yeah, I marked it as well. When you're looking at that live, if you don't know what's coming, and you look, it looks like a failed second entry long and a double top right at all this support resistance area and a very bearish bar. So your hope is it'll run back down to these lows. It doesn't do that. It gets enough to get a scalp, but that's it. And then it just keeps going sideways. And it actually rallies a little bit there at the end. So, and that's really all there was today. Another weak, low volatility day. Again, this is not uncommon this time of year, so don't let it get you down. It'll pick back up here before long. But it's just not much happening right now. So, yeah, not much else we can talk about today. So I'm going to wrap this one up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.